out of all the fucking shit that this woman is saying, boy, do I hope they hear her on that. Fuck pandering to the establishment that's dying. Start your own shit, like own your own destiny. Let's talk about speaking, because it's something we both like.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you're incredibly great at it, and I don't think there's that many people great at it. Do you love it? Like, how do you prep for it? How do you think about the things you talk about? How much do you contextualize the room? Talk to me through Cindy's kind of 5 to 7 bullets on her speaking career from your perspective.
Okay, well, what I will say, by the way, for your audience listening to this, okay, here's the Cindy Gallop 1-minute guide to being a great public speaker.
Go.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because too many people get really fraught about, oh my God, I have to give a talk. Okay?
Right.
And then they make the mistake of going, right, so now I have to write a presentation. Okay, bad idea. You are the talk, not your slides. Okay, so what I say to people is, first of all, whatever you're asked to speak on, decide what you want to speak on really, okay? Because you can take any talk title, and instead of making it go, oh my God, you can go, now, okay, I've been asked to speak about this. What angle would I love to come at this from that I feel really good about? Okay.
It's like a brand positioning. Once you establish the sentence, you can come at it from a million different angles.
But actually, even more importantly, Gary, is because make it therefore something that you really care about and you enjoy speaking about. Because when you do that, think about the fact that you very often sit with friends in a bar or across a dinner table and you have this conversation with them.
100%.
You know, when it's something you feel strongly about, you've had that conversation with friends, you know, with dates, whatever. So I go, then back your talk into the things you feel passionate about and love speaking about. Because then your nerves go away, because it's stuff that you're very familiar saying, you know it by heart already. And then just have enough slides to kind of make key points, and that's it, done.
It's funny you say that. One of the things that I talk a lot about, and you know, Dunk was on my team, D-Rock knows this, I stay in such a narrow lane of either things that I'm passionate about or things that I actually know about. I have watched a lot of my friends and contemporaries give presentations on subject matter they don't know, which is why they're at the mercy of the slide. Right?
No, exactly. And also they feel nervous and inconfident, and
they don't know the subject matter. The reason I've gone with a very heavy Q&A format, or as much as I can, is it allows me to build a bigger connection with the audience. One, I'm giving them what they actually want, and two, it allows me to flex my muscle around my expertise and the things that I actually know what I'm talking about.
But also, quite frankly, to your listeners, you can take anything you're asked to talk on, and you can give a talk that is what you really want to talk on.
What you're saying is control it.
Yeah,
I understand.
Right.
I'm listening. Sometimes I've literally walked out to some talks where I see the slide, what they said I was supposed to talk about, and I just give a talk. I've literally just given a completely different talk. They're like, it's like influencer marketing, and I'm like talking about like podcasts. Like, so, one of my favorite things about you is, in my little world and my audience, I often talk about being a shield to give them courage. I'm very proud that especially for a lot of immigrant kids or a lot of people, like I'm giving them permission. I'm so comfortable with judgment against me that I'm giving them room to try something, and if it fails, they can say, well, Gary, I want to take the blame for them to give them the step. My observation from the far is you do that for a lot of people. And I think that is an incredible gift to give. When I say that, when I frame that up, does that make sense to you? Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, absolutely.
Tell me how you observe that.
Because, Gary, I always say that the single best moment of my life, and by the way, this wasn't a single moment, it was a gradual realization. But the best moment of my life was the day that I realized I no longer give a damn what anybody thinks.
Go figure.
And that is the only way to live your life. And I especially communicate that message to women, because from the moment we're born as women, everything around us conspires to make us feel insecure about absolutely everything to do with ourselves.
Yeah, the infrastructure.
The way we look, the way we talk, the way we dress. Nice girls do this, nice girls don't do that. Women spend the rest of our lives coming back from that, and some of us never do. Yep. And so I want to shortcut that process for every woman, but also, to your point, for everybody who is worried about what other people think, because honestly...
Which is everybody.
Which is everybody, but don't be,
Cindy,
because that's the worst way to be.
I think I also observe this, again, because we don't know each other that well, I observe this from you as well, which I really appreciate, and at times when people have been at a dinner table, your name gets brought up, this is what happens to me too, and I go, be careful. I'm like, if you watch her interact, and I'm proud of this as well, one thing that's amazing that I think you do extremely well is not giving a fuck what anybody thinks does not mean you do not hear other people.
Oh, no.
But it's an important clarity.
Yeah, you're
like this is not audacity.
No, you're right. I mean, don't give a damn what other people think in a good way.
That's right.
I.e., live your life and work your work according to your values
and
what you believe in.
You do a really good job of bringing awareness to things, to put pressure or to bring conversation, and I have watched you bring awareness to something. Hey, this is not tweet, I don't like this, or what's our take on this, or whatever it may be. I've watched people that are on the receiving end of that 99% of the time not answer. Of the left 1%, 0.9% of defend with bullshit.
Yeah.
But occasionally I've seen in that 0.1% remaining, somebody giving clarity, context, and you were extremely quick to also hear it. And this is not you rallying them, people are rallying them up. It pisses me off. I've watched you, and I do the same thing. Like sometimes people say something to me. A friend of mine, Ted, the other day said, hey, I don't like your definition of an entrepreneur. By nature, you're not one. I watched the video and I'm like, he's right. I worked for my dad. And this definition of never working for anybody is not a good definition. I need to clarify it. I'm a little worried about I'm trying to protect over entrepreneurship. So in that, I can get excited sometimes and you're throwing out headlines and it was an incredible back and forth and I've seen that from you, and that for me is why I so desperately wanted you here today. It's why for me, I adamantly support a lot of what you do. Talk about that. Like not giving a fuck, but actually having the capacity to hear when somebody has a counterpoint that may penetrate your psyche as you're going through the conversation.
Well, I think, all I'd say to that, Gary, is that when you actually don't care what other people think, that frees you up to just hear people for real, as opposed to worrying all the time about what other people think, and therefore having that lens obscure the truth of something that you should be looking at differently.
Ageism. There's been so much conversation and slower but some progress on a lot of segments, females, minorities, a ton. Something that you can see a lot of content on, talking more and more about over the last 3 or 4 years has been, in the rise of technology, in the rise of these 23-year-old billionaires, we've gotten into a place where we are doing a very nice collective human job of having a lot of conversations around a lot of sectors, but we are not around 55 to 9, whatever you want to put the number on. We put out a lot of content for that demo. I've noticed that you're beating that drum. I'd like to give you the floor.
Sure. So first of all, I am 59.
Okay.
I shout that from the rooftops.
Yep.
I tell people how old I am as often as possible.
Because you look so great and you want to brag?
No,
or?
No, not at all.
I'm kidding.
Because I consider myself a proudly visible member of the most invisible segment of our society, which is older women.
Couldn't agree more.
I want to help demonstrate by the way I live my life. I want to challenge what society thinks an older woman should look like, talk like, dress like, work like, date like. And I've been campaigning against ageism for years. And this is a really important fact, Gary. For the same reason that I campaign about every aspect of diversity, I am a hard-headed, pragmatic businesswoman.
Yes.
And I am horrified at the amount of money that brands and businesses are leaving on the table when we manage older talent out of the industry.
Couldn't agree more.
And also, by the way, let me define older talent for you. Because I would encourage, if you haven't, are you on Fishbowl, the app at all?
Of course, of course.
Okay, so I would encourage your listeners who aren't, go on Fishbowl, go to the advertising bowl. There is a thread going on at the moment, a very engaged and very long one, where a senior copywriter asked, do you feel you've been managed out of the industry, and if so, what age did it happen? I am horrified by this thread because the answers to that question, at what age were you managed out of the industry, are 34, 36, 39, 40, 42, and that whole thread should be read. Okay, and the point about that is, older people, or as I like to call us, experts, are the key to growth and profitability and exponentially more money.
Or a substantial piece of the equation.
No, absolutely.
Right?
Because what you're talking about is, as a leader, how much do you want your employees to, for a start, never be fazed by any business crisis or situation, but know exactly what to do when anything comes along.
Experience
because they've
matters.
been there 50 million times before.
But you would, listen real quick, but I would push, not back, but like to add context, I'd love to get your perspective on this.
Yep.
So I often say the 43, at 25, I thought I was going to be unstoppable and nobody could beat me and I was great already, and the 43-year-old me laughs at that kid. So experience matters, but there is a little bit of a DNA trait. I mean, I have 55-year-old executives that fold like a cheap chair because that's just in their DNA.
Oh, no, and the ideal, and by the way, the other benefits are, people management skills, something our industry does not specifically train for. You only hone those over years and years and years. Craft skills. You're going to hear a lot of talk at Cannes this week about, technical perfection, crafts. You hone those over decades in our industry. And the point about all of that is that older people are unbelievably time and cost efficient. When you do everything quicker because of that. Now, what I recommend though, what I want to see is cross-generational working. Because the irony of the traditional corporate structure is that it's predicated on the idea that, the higher up you progress, the older you get. And so what we do not have is the 55-year-old and 25-year-old working together as equal partners on the same level.
Couldn't agree more.
And that is the future.
The industry needs more 32-year-old most senior executives and more 54-year-old executors in the trenches. It goes both ways. And mixed all over,
every
100%.
possible dimension.
I couldn't agree more.
I mean, that's the future. And that's an incredibly productive future that nobody's making happen. And I want to see that happen.
Cindy, I think the other thing that you and I, when I get the luxury of consuming something you say or it gets shared or I read it, something I just fucking adore that you say, and I've heard it more under the context of women, but as you were talking about the ageism, I was thinking about this, is fuck trying to get them to accept us. Let's build our own fucking shit, period, end of story. This is, listen, I already kind of, have all these feelings about you from afar. Then you go and say, I can't push more on people doing their own thing, which, as you can imagine, only and always being an entrepreneur, I believe in that. Though we are in the era of fake entrepreneurship, everybody wants to be one, and they should be executives. Self-awareness is what my passion is, to get out there. But I fucking, when, as your name kept populating, as I got into this world, and, I'm like, that's, out of all the fucking shit that this woman is saying, boy, do I hope they hear her on that. Fuck pandering to the establishment that's dying. Start your own shit, own your own destiny. How's that message going? What are you seeing from that? Because I think that one I fucking really attached to.
Good, because I mean, first of all, I've been saying that for years, especially, by the way, this is where I take issue with Sheryl Sandberg and lean in. Sheryl wants us to lean in within the existing system. I want us to redesign the system.
Couldn't agree more.
But especially because I've been trying for a long time to try and change our industry and the business world generally from within, and I've given up. Change happens from the bottom up, not the top down.
It's hard to boil the ocean.
No, exactly. And so I now say women, people of color, LGBTQ, disabled, older, everyone considered other, invent our own future, and by the way, invent our own industry, because we are seeing opportunities because of that innovative, disruptive lens that comes from being on the outside, being an outlier. We are seeing opportunities that you do not see from within the old world order industry.
It's the story. It's the story of my company. I came from the wine retail business.
Yeah. And by the way, it's the same thing. Years ago, I was here at Cannes doing a session on porn, youth, and brands, the biggest social cultural influence that we don't talk about. And in the Q&A session, a young woman put her hand up and she said, Cindy, what is the single piece of advice you would give a young person going to advertising today? And I went, don't. And I said, let me explain what I mean by that. Don't go into advertising to go into advertising. Go into advertising to make what you want to happen. So, come into advertising, come into our industry, take a long, hard look around you. Identify what you think is missing that should be there, what you could bring to the table that nobody else is, what you would have to love available to you that no one else is delivering, and then do that. And by the way, when you do that, in a few years' time, a holding company will buy it for a shit ton of money.
Let's talk about that. I can't believe you just ended that sentence with that, because that's where exactly where I wanted to go. I don't share this a whole lot, but you've encouraged me to, because I just love to put this on your mind. If you asked me, we ended this podcast, and we're like, hey, that was nice, and we were yapping a little on your way out. And you said, what are you up to? And I would, in our industry, because I've now enjoy being part of it in a lot of ways. I would tell you that secretly, my number one ambition with the whole VaynerMedia thing is to encourage the Sallys and the Ritas and the Jeromes and the Johnnies to build independent shops in perpetuity.
Absolutely. I couldn't
If
agree
you
more.
ask somebody who's a true outsider and has come in entrepreneur land, where I came from, and small business land, there was far less of these issues because the merit of being a pragmatic business person trumped everything else. And when I got here, a lot of the things that we're talking about are systematic, and it's because there's 4 or 5 financial arbitrage, M&A, banking machines that run the whole fucking thing. If you want to break the fucking thing, you break by my big personality, I'm hoping that I'm gonna inspire a beating drum. Literally the number one thing that I fear is putting myself in a precarious enough spot financially that I would ever have to succumb to making a transaction for my family's health and well-being, which I don't see happening. I'd rather shut the whole fucking thing down. I believe the inspiration, that young copywriter, she and her partner and a business, or just her, I don't, more independent shops at scale. Can I ask you a question? Because I'm very curious right now, actually. How, I mean, we're talking about the industry as this thing, but that's how I want to position it. How are you received right now in this industry?
I don't care.
I understand that, but that doesn't mean you're not aware. That I believe. I understand that. I'm actually a little bit curious though, because I don't know, but now I've become unbelievably curious. Because you're a little bit, I came from left fucking field. You have this enormous status within it, and now have taken on a different decade and a half. I'm just curious, what is the current state of your positioning in the industry from your perspective?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll tell you what I really, really like, Gary. Okay, so just kind of, getting here today and walking to get my pass at the Calais. I ran into several people whom I don't know, women predominantly, who said, oh my God, I'm such a fan. You are really helping us.
Yes.
You mean so much. And those people write to me every day. Actually, I get a lot of fan mail, emails, LinkedIn messages, Facebook messages, tweets.
But do you get actual mail? Do you get any actual?
Not actual mail.
I was hoping.
But for example, one of the pieces of advice I give to people, especially women, is, negotiate.
Yes.
And the amount you ask for is always the highest amount you can say out loud without actually bursting out laughing.
Love.
Once a week, a woman writes to me and says, "Oh my God, Cindy, I did that. And I got it!" I mean, literally, I can email once a week, and women are putting that advice into practice, and they're finding it actually works. I'm encouraging everyone to start their own agency, and people are writing to me and saying, and in fact, what I do every year at the 3% conference is, I have a point in my keynote every year where I celebrate the ventures that have been started in the past year because of what I said. I mean, I ask people to tell me, let me know, because I'll promote the hell out of you from the stage. I ask people to give them business, follow them, because I want to encourage that. And that is what I love about the impact I'm having in the industry.
What things, as you're driving and showering and flying and walking, are you now thinking about for the next 1, 2, 3 decades? What are some of the early seeds of, you know what? Or I might, what's got momentum in your internal workings that may or may not manifest over the next 2 or 3 decades?
That's very simple, Gary, because quite frankly, in amongst all of this, my primary focus is keeping my startup Make Love Not Porn alive and growing and scaling it.
Good for you.
And so all I'm focused on is generating more revenue, finding investors, which are very hard to do for a sex tech startup.
That makes sense to me.
I live my own philosophies. I created a startup designed to change the world through sex, to make life better for all of us in a really dramatic way, and that is my primary focus.
Let's give it a few minutes then, because I want to give it more exposure.
Okay, good.
Why are we not comfortable talking about sex from your perception? Okay. And where in the world, because I'm, US is real, but is there anywhere where you're, is there any place to point to as a country or a culture where it's a little more healthy?
No, Make Love Not Porn is a global platform, and this issue exists all around the world.
If globally. I asked you where, whether culturally or regionally or country-wise, where they're the furthest along from one woman's point of view, I'm actually now very curious. Is there a
Do you know, I'm sorry to say that every single country in the world is equally fucked up about sex. And so that's why, here's the overarching goal of what I'm doing, okay? When I say that Make Love Porn's single mission is to make it easy to talk about sex, because we don't currently, people don't get how massively, profoundly beneficial that would be. I designed Make Love and Porn around my own beliefs and philosophies. I've said one of those is, everything in life starts with you and your values. So I regularly ask people this question: what are your sexual values? And no one can ever answer me because we're not taught to think like that.
100%.
Our parents bring us up to have good manners, work ethic, sense of responsibility, accountability. Nobody ever brings us up to behave well in bed.
100%.
But they should, because their values like empathy, sensitivity, generosity, kindness, honesty are as important as they are in every other area of our lives where we're actively taught to exercise those values. And that is why what we're doing at Make Love Porn could not be more timely, because the era of Me Too has surfaced a huge dialogue about consent. Everyone's talking about consent. Everybody's writing about consent. Lots of thoughtful, nuanced think pieces about consent out there. Here's the problem. Nobody knows what consent actually looks like in bed. The only way you educate people on what is great consensual communicative sex, good sexuality and good sexual behavior, is by watching people actually having that kind of sex.
Love it.
And Make Love Porn is the only place on the internet you can do that. Every one of our videos is an object lesson in consent, communication, good sexual values and good sexual behavior. We are literally education through demonstration.
I love that. And does it skew female?
No.
50-50?
Gender equal, 50-50.
No, I mean your users.
Yeah. No, 50-50.
I'm sure it's produced that way, just knowing about you. I'm just trying to think about, the lack of courageousness from men on this subject. I'm wondering if they're skewing a little slower.
No, 50-50. And in fact, if anything, we probably get more fan emails from men than from women. And also, by the way, we've created a completely safe and trustworthy social sex video sharing platform. An indication of how safe our members feel is that when straight couples share social sex videos, it's usually the woman who is the primary mover. She's decided she wants to do this and persuaded the man to.
I love it. What have we not talked about in our last couple of minutes here? Anything that you want to touch on?
I think we've pretty much covered the state of the world, haven't we?
We figured it all out. Cindy, I admire you quite a bit.
Thank you so
we haven't
much,
had the
Gary.
luxury of jamming too much yet.
I'm delighted to have had this first conversation with you.
Me too. I'm just, I think you're awfully important. I really genuinely mean that. I think that it takes a lot of courage to speak truth, or at least one's truth. It's not, our truths for each other, my truth to me and your truth to you, may not be everyone's truth, but people that actually speak their truth, eat their own dog food, lie in their bed, I think are very far and few between, and I admire it a lot.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that. Pleasure.
That was good.
Terrific, thank you.